The air on the broken planet was thin and sharp, carrying the scent of rust and ash. Jagged mountains rose like the bones of some long-dead creature, and deep in the valley below, a dark crater glowed faintly. It was there she stood, tall, proud, and certain she knew better than anyone else. Her name was Soraya. She was an alien officer from the Zern Dominion, trained in survival and combat. Her armor was polished and strong, her weapons sharp and deadly. She had been sent here to find an ancient energy core buried deep beneath the ground, a relic said to be powerful enough to change the balance of the galaxy. Beside her stood the human engineer, Mark Callan. He wasn't tall or heavily armed, but his eyes were sharp, and his steps were steady. He had been to more dangerous worlds than he could count, and he knew the signs of a place that wanted you dead. "This ground isn't safe," he told her, scanning the shifting dust at their feet. "The crater walls are unstable, and the seismic readings are spiking. One wrong step, and this whole place will come down on us." Soraya turned her head, a faint smile on her lips. "Humans are always so cautious," she replied. "I have been in far worse conditions. I will be fine." Mark frowned. "This isn't about bravery. It's about staying alive." But she was already walking forward, her boots crunching on loose stone. She didn't slow down, didn't look back. The crater seemed to breathe around them, faint tremors running through the ground like the heartbeat of something huge. Mark followed reluctantly, his scanner in hand. Every few seconds it gave a sharp warning tone. "We shouldn't be here," he muttered. Soraya laughed softly, the sound echoing across the empty land. "If I stopped every time a human told me to turn back, I would never have achieved anything," she said. They reached the lip of the crater, and the view below stole even her breath. The pit was vast, its walls lined with broken metal ribs, like the skeleton of a giant machine. Faint blue light pulsed deep in its core, a steady rhythm that felt almost alive. Mark's grip on his scanner tightened. "That light isn't just energy. Something's still active down there." "That is exactly why I came," Soraya replied, eyes locked on the glow. "If it still works after all these centuries, it will belong to me." A sudden gust of wind sent a rain of pebbles tumbling into the crater. Somewhere far below, the sound of grinding metal echoed upward. Mark's instincts screamed at him to leave, but Soraya only smiled wider. She thought she was in control. She thought the human's warning was nothing more than fear. But beneath her feet, the ancient thing in the crater had just begun to wake. The descent into the crater was slow at first. Soraya moved with confidence, her steps sure on the steep, broken path. She kept her eyes fixed on the faint blue glow far below, as if it were calling to her. Mark followed close behind, his scanner humming in warning every few seconds. Each tone made his jaw tighten. He'd been in places like this before, places that looked quiet, but hid death in every shadow. The walls around them were strange. Black rock was fused with twisted sheets of metal, as if the mountain had swallowed a machine whole. In some places, the metal seemed to twitch, shifting ever so slightly, like it was breathing. "This place isn't dead," Mark said, his voice low. "It's alive. It's watching us." Soraya didn't slow down. "You sound like one of those old Earth ghost stories," she replied, her voice calm. "I've seen worse. This is nothing." A faint rumble passed under their feet, so soft that Soraya almost ignored it. Mark didn't. He froze, staring at the walls. Dust was trickling down in thin streams, and tiny cracks were spreading along the surface. "We should turn back now," he warned. "Whatever's down there, it's not just an energy core, and it doesn't want company." But Soraya's pride was stronger than her caution. She took another step, and then another, ignoring the faint shudder in the ground. The blue glow was brighter now, filling the air with an eerie, cold light. They reached a wide ledge halfway down the crater. From here, the ancient structure at the bottom was clear. A massive ring of metal with strange markings carved deep into its surface. The light pulsed from a core in its center, beating like a heart. Soraya's eyes lit up with hunger. "Do you see it? This is power beyond imagination." The Dominion will reward me greatly. Mark didn't answer right away. He was staring at the core, his stomach twisting. That's not a generator, he said finally. It's a containment seal. Something's inside it. Before she could reply, the ground beneath them gave a sudden, violent jerk. A deep, metallic groan echoed through the crater, like the sound of a giant waking from a long sleep. Soraya staggered but caught herself. It's just shifting rock, she said quickly, though her voice had lost some of its confidence. Mark looked at the widening crack under her boots. No, he said grimly. That's not rock. That's armor. And it just opened. The blue light flared brighter, casting long, sharp shadows up the crater walls. Something deep below shifted, and the air grew heavy, charged with static. The first crack had opened, and there would be no stopping what came next. The crack widened with a sound like tearing metal. A sharp blue beam shot out from the core, slicing through the dust-filled air. The light was cold and unnatural, making Soraya's skin prickle beneath her armor. Mark stepped in front of her without thinking. Back up now, he ordered, his voice firm. She hesitated. Her pride told her to ignore him again, but something in the light made her instincts scream. She took one step back, her eyes fixed on the core. Then the crater shuddered violently. A section of the ledge broke away, tumbling into the depths. The sound of metal grinding against metal rose from below, deep and angry. Out of the core came a slow, rhythmic pounding, like the beating of a drum. With each beat, the blue light flared brighter, and the ground vibrated harder. Mark's scanner was screaming warnings now. That's not a power source, he said through clenched teeth. It's a lock, and we just woke whatever it was holding. Soraya's voice was sharp. If it's dangerous, we destroy it. Mark shook his head. No. If it's been locked away this long, it's because no one could destroy it. The air grew heavy, charged with static electricity. The fine hairs on Soraya's neck stood on end. A shadow began to take shape inside the glowing ring, tall, angular, and moving with slow, deliberate motions. The thing stepped forward. It wasn't entirely metal, and it wasn't entirely alive. Its body was a fusion of alien steel and something that looked disturbingly like muscle. For glowing eyes opened in its head, scanning the crater walls. It let out a sound. Not a roar, not a screech, but a deep, vibrating hum that rattled their bones. Soraya reached for her weapon. I can take it. Mark grabbed her arm before she could fire. No. If you attack now, it will learn. It will adapt. She yanked her arm free, glaring at him. I'm not going to stand here and... The ground split again, forcing them both to leap aside. From the newly opened crack, dozens of thin, metallic tendrils slithered out, searching, tasting the air. One of them lashed toward Soraya's leg. She cut it with her blade, but the severed piece writhed on the ground like a dying snake. The machine beast turned its glowing eyes toward them. It had noticed. Mark's jaw tightened. Now we run. For once, Soraya didn't argue. She spun and followed him up the narrow path, the sound of grinding metal and hunting tendrils chasing them. Whatever they had woken was not going to stay in the crater, and it had already chosen its prey. The path out of the crater was steep and narrow, the walls closing in like the jaws of a trap. Dust and shards of rock slid under their boots as Soraya and Mark ran, the sound of the creature's tendrils scraping against metal ringing in their ears. Soraya's breathing was sharp but steady. She had survived battles, storms, and ambushes. Yet something about the way this machine beast moved made her skin crawl. It wasn't rushing. It was stalking, as if certain its prey could not escape. Mark glanced back and saw the creature climbing after them with terrifying ease, its limbs bending in ways no living thing should. Sparks danced from its claws as they dug into the crater walls. Faster, he shouted. Soraya pushed harder, but the ground betrayed her. The ledge beneath her foot crumbled. She slipped, tumbling sideways toward a jagged gap in the wall. Before she could catch herself, a metallic tendril lashed out and wrapped around her arm. She cried out as heat shot through her armor, the metal glowing where the tendril touched. It wasn't just grabbing her. It was burning through the layers to reach her skin. Mark didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, pulling his blade from his belt and slicing through the tendril in one clean motion. The severed piece thrashed before falling into the darkness below. Soraya's arm throbbed with pain. The burn was deep, the edges blackened. She clenched her jaw, trying not to show how much it hurt. "This is what I warned you about," Mark said, his voice rough. "You can't fight this thing the way you fight soldiers." She opened her mouth to argue, but another tremor shook the path. The crater's wall split, sending chunks of rock raining down. One boulder slammed into the ledge ahead, breaking it into pieces. Their way out was narrowing fast. The machine beast let out that deep, vibrating hum again, this time louder, almost triumphant. More tendrils shot forward, slicing through the falling debris like knives. Mark grabbed Soraya's uninjured arm. "Move!" They leapt over the broken section, landing hard. Soraya's injured arm nearly gave out beneath her weight, but she forced herself forward. Every step sent waves of pain through her body. As they reached the next turn in the path, another tendril struck, wrapping around Soraya's leg. She fell forward, dragging Mark with her. The creature was pulling her back into the depths. Mark's teeth clenched as he drew a plasma cutter from his pack. The beam hissed as it sliced through the tendril, the severed end sparking violently. He hauled her to her feet, his face pale. "We're not going to make it out in one piece," he said grimly. Soraya finally met his gaze. For the first time, there was no arrogance in her voice. "Then tell me what to do." Mark didn't waste time answering. His eyes scanned the narrowing path ahead, then flicked to the walls above. Every rumble made more cracks appear, and every crack sent rocks sliding down toward them. "The exit's close," he said. "But if we slow down for even a second, it'll catch us." Soraya's arm burned, her leg ached, but she forced herself to match his pace. The blue light from the core below flickered against the walls, casting strange shadows that danced like living things. The creature was still climbing after them, its glowing eyes locked on their backs. Mark's scanner beeped in a rapid, urgent rhythm. "Seismic instability at maximum," he muttered. "This whole crater's going to collapse." The path suddenly widened into a flat platform. For a moment, Soraya thought they had a chance to rest, until she saw the jagged metal blocking the way forward. It looked like part of the ancient machine had broken free and lodged itself into the wall. Mark pulled a small explosive charge from his pack. "Cover me," he said, crouching to place it against the metal. Soraya stood guard, blade ready. The hum of the creature grew louder. She could see its silhouette now, a mix of sharp limbs and twisting cables, its movements smooth yet unnerving. "Mark, hurry," she urged. He set the detonator and dove to the side. The blast was quick but powerful, sending a cloud of smoke and dust into the air. When it cleared, a narrow gap stood where the metal had been. "Go!" Mark shouted. They squeezed through the opening, the edges scraping against their armor. Behind them, the creature's tendrils whipped forward, barely missing their backs. One tendril scraped Soraya's shoulder, leaving a deep glowing cut in her armor. The tunnel ahead sloped upward. The light of the surface was faint but visible. They pushed forward, lungs burning, feet pounding against the stone. Then a deafening roar. Not mechanical, but something in between machine and beast, echoed through the tunnel. The ground shifted violently, throwing them off balance. A tendril shot past Soraya's head, striking the tunnel wall. The impact sent chunks of rock falling, nearly sealing the way out. Mark pulled her through the narrow gap before it closed completely. Fresh air hit their faces, and they stumbled onto the surface. But there was no relief. The ground above the crater was cracking, dust plumes rising as the creature forced its way upward. Mark grabbed Soraya's wrist. "We're not safe yet. That thing isn't stopping here." She looked back at the crater. The blue light was blazing now, flooding the valley with its unnatural glow. Whatever they had awakened, it wasn't just alive. It was free, and it was coming for them. The ground shook under their feet, each tremor stronger than the last. Soraya and Mark backed away from the crater's edge, eyes fixed on the swirling blue light rising like smoke. A deep, grinding noise split the air as the machine beast climbed into view. Its limbs unfolded in jagged, insect-like movements, each joint glowing faintly with the same blue energy as the core. Now, in the open daylight, its full size became clear. It stood twice as tall as a human, its body a blend of dark steel and sinew, as if the metal had fused with something once alive. Its 4 glowing eyes scanned the surface, locking on the pair instantly. Soraya's grip tightened on her blade. "We can fight it together." Mark shook his head. "You're injured. If it adapts to both of us, we lose all chance." "You can't take that thing alone," she argued. His eyes didn't leave the creature. "I'm not planning to win. I'm planning to buy you time." The beast let out that low, bone-rattling hum again, and then it moved impossibly fast for its size. Tendrils shot forward, slicing through the dirt like whips. Mark rolled to the side, pulling a high-voltage charge from his belt and slamming it into the ground. The explosion threw the creature back a step, but it barely slowed. Soraya watched, torn between running and fighting. Every instinct told her to stand her ground, but Mark's earlier words rang in her head. "You can't fight this thing the way you fight soldiers." Mark moved in close, slashing at the tendrils with a plasma blade, cutting them before they could wrap around him. The beast adapted quickly, shifting its movements, learning his rhythm. A tendril lashed toward his chest, but he caught it with both hands and drove an electric spike into its side. The creature recoiled with a sharp metallic screech, its glow flickering for the first time. "Now," he shouted. "Get to the transport." Soraya hesitated one heartbeat too long, and a second tendril slammed into Mark, throwing him across the dirt. He landed hard, the breath knocked out of him. The beast turned its focus on him completely, advancing with slow, certain steps. Soraya's pride shattered in that moment. She sprinted toward him, dragging him to his feet. "You're not dying here," she said, her voice fierce. Mark stumbled but stayed upright, blood running down his side. "Then we finish this now." Together they faced the creature. The blue glow from its core burned brighter, the hum rising to a deafening pitch. The final strike was coming, and only one of them might walk away. The air between them and the machine beast crackled with energy. Blue arcs danced across the ground, scorching the dirt. Mark tightened his grip on his plasma blade, his breathing heavy and uneven. Soraya stood beside him, her injured arm trembling but her stance unshaken. The creature struck first, a blur of steel and glowing tendrils. Mark met the attack head-on, deflecting the first strike and cutting through the second, but the sheer force drove him back. Soraya darted in, slicing at the creature's side. Sparks erupted, and for a moment, it staggered. But it adapted again. Its movements changed, faster, more unpredictable. A tendril whipped low, catching Soraya's leg and pulling her off her feet. She slammed onto the ground, the wind knocked out of her. The creature loomed over her, its eyes flaring bright, ready to crush her. Mark didn't think, he moved, throwing himself between them. He drove his plasma blade deep into the glowing joint at its chest. The blue light flared violently, and the beast let out a roar that was half mechanical, half alive. The explosion of energy was instant. A shockwave blasted outward, throwing Soraya across the ground. She hit hard, rolling until she came to a stop. When her vision cleared, she saw the creature convulsing, its glow flickering like a dying star. Mark was still there, his hands locked on the blade buried in its chest. Energy surged through him, burning, tearing, but he didn't let go. "Mark!" she screamed. He turned his head slightly, his face pale but calm. "Told you, I'd buy you time." With one final push, he twisted the blade. The creature shuddered, then collapsed, its limbs falling still. The glow faded from its eyes, leaving only the smell of scorched metal in the air. Soraya crawled to him, pulling him away from the smoking remains. His armor was cracked, his breathing shallow. "You fool," she said, her voice shaking. Why didn't you run? His lips curved into the faintest smile. Because sometimes the advice you ignore is the one that saves you. I couldn't let you pay the price alone. Her chest tightened. She had dismissed him, mocked his caution, and now he had given everything to protect her. The valley was silent except for the faint hiss of cooling metal. Soraya sat beside him, holding his hand, the weight of her choices pressing down heavier than any wound. She had survived, but at a cost she would never forget. From that day on, the proud Zern officer carried not just the scars of the battle, but the memory of a human who had warned her, saved her, and paid the painful price she should have borne herself.